Hi, everybody. This is your good pal, Austin, and I'm here to talk about fantasy baseball stuff, specifically a lot of movements from a pitcher perspective, batter perspective, and also to round out the video, I'm going to talk about the importance of the Cincinnati Reds. As you guys all know, pretty much at this point, I'm a Reds fan, but I never talk about the Reds because they're not usually relevant. But when teams start to make moves and or chatter about particular players getting promoted at different times of the year, that usually means that a whole lot of value is coming your way, but only for specific situations. So I'm going to jump over to first talk about the notable pitchers and their movements, free agency and things. And let's jump right into that. Actually, before I even jump into pitchers, as usual, I want to be transparent and show you all kind of how I'm doing in my own league. And in league number 1, I am number 2 overall in points for. I don't think I'm going to catch the first place points leader this year, but I will do everything in my power to lead in the categories that mean the most to me in regards to bonuses. So, I said before that there's 4 points per stolen base. Made sure I had a really fast team, so I'm number 1 there. And obviously, we can always, I feel like, better determine our outcomes if we're striking people out, not letting people on base. So there's a lot of pretty solid numbers that come from my pitching staff, and we're tied for number 1 in even wins as well. Just got passed by in 1 innings pitched because these league rules are weird and very beneficial to have extra bullpen guys that are getting holds, but I digress. We'll move on. So second place in points for in League 1, and then in League 2, number 1 in points for. And then if we go over here to strikeouts, a lot more strikeouts than my peers, inning pitched, number 1, and so on and so forth. Total bases, I'm in second place. And then if we go to stolen bases, also in second place. So if we go to the pitchers I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try to run through these really as quickly as possible, but we will see because I have lots of information usually when I share videos. So let's go ahead and do it. Andres Munoz is returning off of the IL. From a deltoid strain. And really the significance with Andres Munoz coming in is it is going to absolutely affect Paul Sewald. Even though Paul Sewald is perfect so far this season, besides 1 save, he's converted 11 out of 12 save chances so far this year, and has had a pretty solid season with 33 strikeouts over 24 innings pitched and 11 saves. He's absolutely going to split time with Andres Munoz, assuming that he's at full go. Andres Munoz has already gotten extended for a contract extension. And last year, let's just say that there was the top 10 overall relief pitchers in baseball. Andres Munoz was one of those. And if you're thinking about the Seattle Mariners as a potential playoff contender, like again this year, with even an extended playoff format, they're going to put the best player in the best situations. So ESPN reports that, Paul Sewald doesn't have anything to worry about, but when you have someone as incredibly talented as Andres Munoz coming in off of the IL, it's something to worry about if you're a Paul Sewald owner. If you are a Paul Sewald owner, I think that this is the absolute ceiling that he is going to be valued at. I would look to trade him for meaningful value in other positions or the same position kind of moving forward. The next person I want to talk about, which is really, really exciting, Andrew Abbott. So he's the 95th overall prospect according to MLB Pipeline, but he is the number 6 overall prospect in the Reds organization. It's absolutely loaded this year, and man, is it slow in loading. But anyways, Andrew Abbott has been the best pitcher in minor league baseball so far this year. His minor league stats to date: 54 innings pitched, 90 strikeouts. That equates to a 15 K per 9, which would be essentially like a little bit better than a Jacob deGrom and or a Spencer Strider when they're at their healthiest and at their best. So, that's unheard of. Obviously, the talent doesn't always necessarily transfer over from the minors to the majors, but he carried a 2.5 ERA and a 0.93 WHIP from his minor league career into his debut that was today, and his debut was actually really cool. So his Reds debut, he was the first starting pitcher to throw 6 innings pitched, allowed 1 or less hit, and in his debut for the Cincinnati Reds. So he broke history. He made history in that regard. And then also just the fact that he was even with his strikeouts to innings pitched, with the amount of strikeouts that he had in the minors, there's a ton of upside with this guy being Andrew Abbott. Obviously, 6.7% owned across fantasy baseball league. So if you're really hurting for pitching, he won't throw again until, maybe even like Sunday or Saturday against, now St. Louis. But this is a guy to absolutely keep track of. And given that he scored, 24 points and earned a win even in his first debut, that's pretty cool. And also, I think it's really important to mention that he had in his debut 105 pitches. So he's 24 years old, but in his debut as a rookie, 105 pitches, that's kind of unheard of. And we're going to circle again back around to the importance of what the Cincinnati Reds are doing with a lot of their player movements and things. But this is something to really keep your eyeballs on. I think Andrew Abbott has again huge ceiling potential, given all of his accolades coming up so far. But again, somebody that we'll keep track of as we move forward. And he's a left-hander, so he has more of an opportunity to stick in the rotation as that niche, kind of moving forward and build upon that. So Logan Allen is somebody I owned in this league for a long time. I made a mistake. Somebody dropped poopy big person from Toronto. He's not been very good. He was highlighted red on all my sheets. The pitcher for Toronto, he's the ace, and he is getting smacked left and right. Who is this guy I'm thinking of? Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah was just available for free agency. Didn't use a claim on him. He was just available. And I thought to myself, I'm going to add Alek Manoah and just put him on my bench for a couple starts, and hopefully he makes one miraculous run through the lineup and he scores 20, 30 points. And I would immediately attempt to trade him because he doesn't have, nor the control or the strikeout numbers this year that he did last year, kind of falling apart in every regard, but has a big name attached to him with a lot of run support. So I thought I'll add him to my roster just to have a big name, top 30 player on my bench to try to tag along with somebody else in a trade. And he has been nothing but bad since, but Logan Allen is who we're focusing on. So I dropped Logan Allen. He got picked up by somebody else, the only other Cleveland fan in the league. I should have saw that coming, and I did. But anyways, this Logan Allen's giving you everything that you could ever want more. So he's only 17.8% owned, 45 innings pitched. He has plus strikeouts and a sub-3 ERA, 2.76 ERA, and is just really coming into his own. He's had a couple starts earlier this season where he only scored single-digit points, but he really hasn't gotten much run support either. So Logan Allen, honestly, if he's available, of all the pitchers I'm going to talk about who are probably available, I think this guy probably has the highest floor of anyone, just because he's been so consistent to start the year. He just can't really decide or contribute towards how much run support he gets, which again is limited in Cleveland, given that they're playing small ball to this day. Next, I had a double take. I was in California earlier this week, and there was a Reds game going on. I turned it on to catch the end of it, and I saw that Julio Teheran, his name was scrolled across the bottom of my screen. I had to double take and even look up to make sure that it was the same Julio Teheran who is the ace of the Braves. It seemed like 8 years ago as a super young man. Well, now he's 32 years old, which for baseball concerns, not old, has plenty of career left in him if he can just stay healthy. And even though he only scored single digits today, his ERA and whip to start the year is really, really good. Only 11 innings pitched. Obviously so far, well, I think now since he's been acquired by Milwaukee, from San Diego till Milwaukee, they cut off some of his stats from before. But overall, again, playing against Andrew Abbott, I got to get used to that new name in my life. Playing against Andrew Abbott and the Cincinnati Reds, went 6 innings pitched, had 5 strikeouts, which is pretty good. 2 earned runs. Just didn't get any run support because Andrew Abbott was so good. 6 hits across it. So, seeing a 1.11 whip, that's all of the numbers that we want to see. I don't have all of the faith that maybe he can, keep up this, rate, but he was an all-star in the past as a young man, which maybe would have been like 96, maybe it's like 24, 25 years old when he was with the Braves, really producing at a super elite level. So, somebody coming off, and it was maybe an easy streamer in the future. He's next going to start against the Oakland Athletics, who I think now have like a negative 200 run differential or something like that. Are projected to maybe have the worst record in baseball history this year. So if you need a pretty easy maybe fill and some bonus points, from a pitcher coming up at the end of this week, it might be Julio, Teheran, and I think that's just a fun blast from the past. But next, this is only relevant if you get points for holds or if you're in a category league and you're looking for holds. Ben Joyce just came up with the LA Angels. There's been a lot of hype around Ben Joyce because 20 of his 21 pitches that he's thrown in the major so far have been over 100 miles per hour. When I see that, I would like to think that the young man's going to develop a breaking ball of some sort. But as a relief pitcher, you can really rely on one or two pitches if you are only required to come in at the end of the game and just complete. If you're able to throw under over 100 each and every pitch, then that's pretty hard to beat. But he's not going to earn any saves over Carlos Estevez. Carlos Estevez is going to be the all-star representative closer for the AL this year. He's perfect on the year, has not blown any saves. And, he's not, again, Ben Joyce is not going to get any opportunities for saves. But if you are somebody, again, that needs holds specifically, Ben Joyce seems like he's a pretty ultimate option for that, given how, how much runs and how good top to bottom the Angels roster is, that even though they don't ever seem to put it all together all at the same time. Ben Joyce could be a really solid option there, given that he is supposed to be a frontline closer in the future. He has the pedigree for it. Edward Cabrera has been honestly like kicking butt from a strikeout perspective. So like overall so far in the year, if we look at his whip, so like we want a 1.20 whip or less. He has a 1.343, which is not what we want. We want anything from a 3.99 ERA and lower, and he has a 4.5. That's not awesome either, but the positives is that, if we look at his season stats so far this year, 58 innings pitched, 76 strikeouts. That puts him as the fifth highest K per nine leader in all of Major League Baseball so far this year. And if we're looking at his next start coming up Wednesday, meaning if this is playing on the 6th of June, Wednesday being tomorrow, the 7th, against the Kansas City Royals, whose offense, historically struggles. I think this would be an awesome guy to add to your roster for a day or keep long-term. I'm planning on keeping him on my roster longer than just tomorrow per se because of this potential. But it's one of those things where like these super young guys come up, they have all of the movement, they have all the potential, their ceiling is high. But the thing that really is the most sustainable factor that we're looking for is like how can these guys control the amount of movement? Can they control how wild they are at times? And this is just something that everybody has to figure out on their own as they progress. So super young kid, super high ceiling. But let's keep an eyeball on him. Any player who can go 6 innings pitched and strike out 10 batters with only giving up one walk is somebody who I'm very interested in at least tracking from that point forward. So that's the end of my thoughts on Edward Cabrera. And if we go over to JP France, so I'm going to go talk about sort of the Houston Astros lineup. So the Houston Astros lineup, if you weren't on the Hunter Brown bandwagon earlier this year, he's obviously owned by everybody at this point, but they've actually kind of transitioned to a swingman starting pitching rotation. So they have 5 guys that are locked in with this Ronald Blanco filling in when they feel like they need maybe some innings pitched or pitches taken off their really young guys. If I look across the board, Framber Valdez, which is obviously the seasoned ace at this point, is still under 30 years old. Christian Javier this year is finally, last year into this year, is the first time that he's actually been allowed to have like not an unlimited pitch count, but 100 pitch count per game, kind of moving forward. And then if we look at these guys, JP France, MLB service time is just a month or so, as well as Brandon Bielak and Hunter Brown. So what I'm saying is that even though the Houston Astros, we think of this, super talented offense and pitching staff. That is the truth. But if we look at who's hurt, Luis Garcia gone for the season. Lance McCullers just stopped throwing in general off of a mound because he just had a setback in his injury, as in his rehab with his strained elbow. So he's not supposed to be back until after the All-Star game, and there's no set date whatsoever. And then Jose Urquidy is not supposed to be back at least until the very middle of July. So we're gonna have an entire month and a half still of really seeing what these Houston pitchers can do. And, so far this season, I would say that they're pretty much the same person. If we look across JP France and Brandon Bielak, they've thrown about the same number of innings. They've given up the same number of hits, earned runs. They've struck out the same amount of people. One is 10% owned. One is 3.8% owned. I think that with these two guys, it's gonna be they're gonna earn probably 10 points or so on their own, and they're gonna end up being a single digit guy or a 15 to 20 point guy, depending on if they get the win, which they can't control. So not overwhelmingly exciting stats from these guys because they don't have plus strikeouts, but they're both in the threes with their ERA, and for being how inexperienced they both are, I think that it's a fairly safe bet if you need pitching fills. And I've had JP France kind of on my rosters and across my rosters now for the last month, and he's been even nothing but pretty consistent, similar to a Logan Allen, but is giving up more runs than Logan Allen, and Logan Allen has plus strikeouts. So Logan Allen obviously the better player than either of these guys, but seem like these two seem pretty consistent, and they're going to stick in that lineup because Houston doesn't have anybody else to turn to. This is Russell. Say goodbye to Russell. Hello and goodbye to Russell. So talked about Houston's lineup. Let's go into the batter section. Oh, no, I'm going to talk about two more pitchers just really quick. Very, very quickly, Jason Adam is filling in now again. He was kind of piggybacking, or not piggybacking. He was splitting time as the closer for the number one team in baseball, Tampa Bay Rays, with Pete Fairbanks. But Pete Fairbanks is back on the IL. So Jason Adam is really taking over again that full-time closer role. He already has 8 saves on the season. He got his 9th tonight versus the Red Sox earlier today. So Jason Adam being only owned in 22% of leagues is a really, really good value. And that's something, probably should have jumped on last week, but seems to still be overwhelmingly available. And there's a lot of questions I've had about Bryce Miller and what do I think about Bryce Miller. And Bryce Miller came up, he's, I think on the entire season, let's say he's given up like 6 walks, 1, 2, 3, plus 2. He's given up 5 walks in the entire season across 38 innings pitched. 5 walks. He has gotten absolutely crushed the last 2 times out. So let's really focus into this and figure out kind of what it means. So Bryce Miller, looking at his start against the New York Yankees, 4.2 innings pitched, 11 double-digit hits, gave up 8 runs and obviously a loss. Not a lot of strikeouts for that. Once you're kind of rattled, people are on base, strikeouts become diminished a little bit. But let's go on to the Texas series. So the Texas game that he just played yesterday, being on the 4th for me, you'll be viewing this on the 6th, being Tuesday, 2.1 innings pitched, 8 hits, another 8 hits, and 7 earned runs. So just across his last 7 innings pitched, he has given up 19 hits, and he's given up 15 earned runs, raising his ERA from what was in the 1s to a 4.4 ERA on the season, which is really, really, really poor, right? That's not something that we're super interested in, as well as the fact that his strikeouts, his strikeout rates are way down too. But if we really look at the the underlying, I think, stat with Bryce Miller is, though he is, they're getting a little bit of film on him. There may be tipping his pitches. There may be, which is completely legal as long as you're not using cameras from the outfield zooming in and cheating like the Astros with technology. He's going to have to get more complicated with his, with his pitch signaling. He's going to have to get more, more consistent with his pitch delivery. because now there's, they have enough metrics. He's pitched 38 innings at this point. But what I think is more sustainable and why he is he's worth holding on to, and maybe not necessarily trading for. You could probably wait for him to get dropped or go after him, whatever suits your fancy. Bryce Miller, super duper control guy. And we look at guys that are super control guy with about even to plus strikeout capability, or even to like just minus, barely minus strikeout capability. I think that he ranges anywhere between probably, so his floor, I think in 2 years is going to be a George Kirby. Super control guy, throws a bunch of innings, but like if he throws 180 innings in a year, I think he's going to have 170 strikeouts with like a mid threes to a low threes ERA. I think that's his capabilities because, again, he's giving up no free passes. The fact that he doesn't walk anybody really like gives me confidence that like he's going to start missing batters again. But if you're kind of on and off with missing batters, but you're consistently putting people on base, that's when those things start to multiply against you. And the next, if I think that his ceiling would probably be like anywhere between a Joe Ryan or a Max Fried at his absolute highest potential, which is saying a lot, right? But again, it's one of those things where it's like, even though he's given up all of these runs and all of these hits just over the last 2 games, he's inflated all of his numbers, his whip is still under 1, 0.97. So if you're a Bryce Miller owner, I would hold strong. Know that the kid's only 24 years old and he's going to come around and be fine. So those are my thoughts on Bryce Miller. And I'm going to go on to my batters. Jordan Walker, as everyone knows, pretty much at this point, Jordan Walker, number 1 prospect in baseball for a reason, 6'6", 245 pounds, and he's the fastest player on the St. Louis Cardinals. So St. Louis Cardinals this year are a dumpster fire of a record only because they're being managed as poorly as you could possibly manage them. If I was in charge of the Cardinals myself, knowing that that's the team that I hate more than anything, and I was purposely hired to sabotage the entire season, I would have done exactly what they've done so far, specifically to Jordan Walker and all of the young players that are developing and the pitchers that they've signed, and just overall poor management. But what we're focusing on right now, Jordan Walker, 31% owned. He is coming in to fill in for Lars Nootbaar, who is the everyday right fielder. Lars goes down. Jordan will fill right back in as the everyday right fielder like he was before, while still obviously maintaining his third base eligibility. So if you're weak at third base or outfield, I really just think like number 1 prospect in baseball. Though he might start off slow, he should play every single day towards the bottom of that St. Louis Cardinals lineup that are actually like sneaky more productive than their record shows, and we'll see that a little later. But again, he has all of the tools. He is their best defensive outfielder on roster. He's their fastest player on roster. Tommy Edman and Jordan Walker racing against each other. Tommy Edman being 5'9", 160 pounds, and Jordan Walker being 6'6", 245 pounds. At the end of that 60 foot, 60-yard race, whatever it is, Jordan Walker's ahead significantly. Every stat shows he's just the most athletic overall player on that roster, and he deserves to be in that lineup every day, somewhere in the lineup. But anyways, if he's available, I think this is just a sure shot. He got sent down while batting like 275, 276 or something like that, which is plenty enough for the number 1 overall prospect to stay in that lineup and that roster. So good things to come for Jordan Walker. And he's owned in 62.8% of leagues. The next guys are kind of like not super relevant for of an availability perspective, but Josh Jung so far this year, if I filter by, hopefully this doesn't like take too long. Josh Jung so far this year, if I said in the preview or like the preseason shows and in my document that if Josh Jung just hits 250, a 250 average or above, he's going to have an opportunity to be an all-star. And not only is he hit 250 above, he's hitting 294 on the entire season on the number 1 offense in Major League Baseball. If this guy is available for whatever reason, 62.8% of leagues he's rostered in, meaning that there's a significant number, let's say around 38% of leagues remaining, 28%, 38%, plus, yep, 38%. Awesome math, Austin. 38% of leagues. If he's still somehow available, find a spot for him. I don't know what you're for. It doesn't matter what format you're in. He's contributing in every category except stolen bases. He's truly a special player. I think last season he averaged, it was like 2.3 or 2.4 total bases per hit. Super strong kid who's going to play every single day. They really believe him at that third base. He is their long-term option at third base. Add Josh Jung if he's available. Jeremy Pena, I had him on my roster too. I dropped him only because they slotted him back down at the end of the gosh darn lineup when Jose Altuve came back. And Jose Altuve has returned in the lineup and then actually just got put back from a day-to-day perspective. So Marcial Dubon filled in at that leadoff spot. But even with Jose Altuve coming back and knocking Pena out of what he was the leadoff position for a while, and then Dubon was in it for a long time, Pena looks like he's going to be the long-standing number 2 spot in that batting order, which is where he really belonged this entire time. I thought that he was every bit a leadoff or number 2 hitter in that offense. I was frustrated that they weren't giving him the opportunities to do so, and they finally are. So the fact that he's back up to a 252 average and he's hit almost 300 for the last week. I think this is a player, if he's available, 64% owned. He's someone who can be extra productive and extra consistent, given that he's playing every single day at that shortstop spot. So I've always been a big Jeremy Pena guy. Again, dropped him only because he wasn't getting enough volume. He wasn't playing enough in that Houston offense lineup, but that's no longer the case, meaning like towards the top of the lineup, he just wasn't getting enough at-bats to be rosterable. Earlier in the season, he fell outside of the top 10, even in his own category, but he's starting to make up for it. So on to the next one, Brandon Drury to start this year. Brandon Drury is he was up in the 3 hole the other day with the Angels. I think that they maybe gave Ohtani a day off, but regardless if he's between the 3 or the 5 hole, the Angels have a ton of, obviously, potential to score a ton of runs every night, and given the fact that he's eligible across every infield position except for shortstop and DH if you have to have a DH. I think that's the flexibility perspective. That's really good. But Brandon Drury just over the last couple of weeks has been super duper consistent, hitting for power. He's hitting 333. No, he only has 2 home runs, a double. He's playing every day and he's getting on base pretty consistently. No negative days, not striking out a ton. So this is a player, again, that I think it can fit really anywhere on your roster. And he's finally starting to heat up. He was a double machine. He was a home run machine. I think he had 28 home runs this past season, and 22 of them were with the Reds. And then we transitioned over to the he was a Padre after that. He just became a double machine. His total bases per hit numbers didn't really fluctuate that much because those same balls that were flying out in Cincinnati were just smacking the wall, and he was ending up on second base this last season. Though again, this is another team, different year, but we've seen what Brandon Drury could be. He was an all-star just this past year. I think this is a pretty easy person to invest into now while he's on the up and up and heating up. And we're talking about hot players. No one's hotter than Ryan McMahon right now with the Colorado Rockies. Ryan McMahon has, I remember I said this last week that the last video, over the last week or the last 15 days, he had scored a third of his points for the entire year, right? And even since then, he's really continued to be just as hot as before. I think he's number 2 overall in total bases over the last week or over the last 15 days. So super productive player. He's going to continue to hit in the middle of that lineup with the Rockies in a ballpark that yields a lot of scoring. So Ryan McMahon is on the 32% owned. He is on the hottest stretch of anyone in baseball. And, if he's available and you could find a spot for him, seems like a pretty easy guy to slot into your roster if you have any guys that are kind of on the fence. And next, the finale, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds and kind of why they're important. So why they're necessary to start paying attention to if you haven't been paying attention to them so far. So Elly Cruz seems to be, everyone that's talked about him, he hit another, he's just been crushing minor league baseball. They've released a couple videos basically saying that, like, Elly De La Cruz is a future star. Like, absolutely. He fluctuates, doesn't fluctuate. He contributes in every category. He's probably the most athletic person in the, the Reds, overall system in general. He is the number 4 overall prospect in all of Major League Baseball, and he's supposed to pop up at any time. 6'5", 200 pounds. He's going to probably play third base, given that McLain's been doing so well at shortstop. But overall, just an athletic freak, big prospect, big reasons why. But why would they want to bring up Elly De La Cruz, given how successful, or I guess non-successful they've been from a record perspective? Well, it's kind of like what's happening around them. So we look at Elly De La Cruz. If I'm the Reds, I don't want to hold him down as much as possible. I like to extend his contract, manipulate his contract as much as possible. But you look around at the supporting cast, and Spencer Steer has been one of the best players in Major League Baseball just over the last like month or so. I think that he's still a top 10, just from a third base perspective, third base eligibility. He's still in the top 10 for his position as a rookie. He was the rookie of the week just this past week. He's number 7 overall at his position of third base. If we look at McLain's been averaging 3.5 points, and over the last week, I think that he's he's in the top 10 in total bases in the entire league as well. So we look at their number 2 hitter, and Spencer Steer being the number 4 hitter. And then if we look at the Cincinnati Reds roster overall, every single guy on this roster has options. They're so young. They're one of the youngest teams in all of Major League Baseball. And if we're looking at people, transition to make room for Elly De La Cruz, they can. Again, I think that he's going to probably slide into third base. Nick Senzel, I'm worried about him moving back to the outfield because I think he's going to get hurt again, just the way that his body moves around, his hips. I don't know what it is, but I think he needs to stick at third base. I wish that Elly De La Cruz could maybe slot in at second or something, so Kevin Newman can hit the bench and maybe be more of a utility guy. But there's absolutely space for Elly De La Cruz to fit into this roster, and for meaningful reasons. And this is why. If you think of the overall motivations of baseball teams, right now, coming into 2023 playoffs, Major League Baseball playoffs, they've extended it. So no longer are we only going to get 5 teams in, we're going to get 6 teams, into the Major League Baseball tournament at the very end of the World Series. Right. So if we're looking at the teams ahead of the Reds, we see a whole lot of mediocre. There's one team that's not currently in the wild card that's even 500. The teams that are right above us, obviously they have a lot of way better ceiling potential than the Reds do, but big money rosters, whatever, they're going to make moves at the trade deadline. We'll see what happens. But if the Reds continue to, they won again tonight. They just moved up into third place, assuming that I think that the Padres just won. So the Reds are now in second place behind the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? Or no, they're in third place behind the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Milwaukee Brewers. So they're ahead of the Cubs and they're ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals. Do I look at their run differential? -33. That's not super awesome. Worst record in baseball, St. Louis Cardinals, +3 run differential. So we look at them, though they only have 2 less wins than Cincinnati, the underlying stats show that the Cardinals are a lot better baseball team than Cincinnati. But baseball is a weird sport. If you look at Philadelphia has 1 more win and is only 4 spots out of a wild card spot. And they're a -31 run differential. The New York Mets, I don't have hardly any faith in, and they're at a -12. 2 teams that are currently in the playoff hunt right now that would make the playoffs as of today is the Miami Marlins, who have had one run wins than anyone in Major League Baseball so far. They have a -34 run differential. Milwaukee, who I don't have any faith in, and is still without Woodruff, and it's not a ton of run support. They -21 run differential. So if we look at these teams really ahead of the Reds, I think the Reds are in the situation of we bring up one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball from like a prospect perspective, but we've seen those boosts before. You bring up that prospect and see like how much productivity, if they end up being an all-star caliber player, that's someone who you absolutely can ride into having a shot at the playoffs. Why would the Reds want to make a shot at the playoffs over the more than any other year? Is because of the TV contracts. We think of the TV contracts, that is the major source of revenue for all baseball teams, across every team makes way more money off of their TV revenue than they do ticket sales, merchandise sales, anything else. In order to pay their players, they have to be able to sell to their rights to the TV providers to be able to broadcast their games. That's everything. So far this season, Bally Sports has been making they went bankrupt, they declared bankruptcy, and so far this season, to maintain the rights to be able to show the Reds games on Bally Sports, they've been making the default absolute bare minimum payment to the Reds. So the Reds are not getting as much money as they were promised in that contract. And what would be one of the biggest things to help them from a financial perspective, and the finances in baseball right now is as flimsy as you can ever put it. The TV contracts, everyone's starting to dissipate and offer less money to show baseball games because, number one, baseball is not as popular as it used to be, but also they have such little ways and opportunities to really track who is watching and where, to be able to count viewers. Right now, Major League MLB TV this year has been free for anyone who's wanted to watch it so far, and usually that's $100+ subscriptions. They're not getting any money from that either. Everyone's hurting for money. Cincinnati's a small market team. They've always been a small market team. They need that money to be able to keep these players. Everyone on this roster, if I show again, everyone on this roster, a lot of potential. But if we look at all these options, everyone's so young. They have one of the youngest rosters in baseball. If they want to, even consider or try to re-sign and keep these players around for any amount of time, if they made the playoffs, all of the revenue that comes in from making the playoffs and how meaningful that would be, that really would be huge and set them apart from their peers, and set them up for really sustainable major success. And again, every team wants to make the playoffs, but if you really look at the Reds roster, if they were able to bring up an all-star caliber bat and athlete into that roster, why wouldn't they have the ability to really surpass some of these teams above them that have been pretty mediocre and are kind of leading the divisions right now. So again, if I'm a Reds fan, I don't fear anyone. If you're a Padres fan as well, you have all the money invested in the world in that roster, but you shouldn't fear anyone either. But it's one of those things where the Reds need the money. They're going to start. They've already brought up Andrew Abbott today. They're going to bring up Elly Cruz any day now. This is a player that absolutely got to keep your eyeballs on. The second that he's up, you have to slot him into your roster somewhere as quickly as possible. Button smash as fast as possible. Kind of thing. So before I ramble on any further, that is the end of the show. And gosh darn it, do I appreciate all of your support. And I will talk to you guys very soon. So bye. Love you lots. Bye.